I feel like it's so connected to my past, the recovery. I have to do certain things every single day to make sure I continue that, or I lose it. Like if I don't hold on to it with everything I have and I don't make the right choices every single day, I lose it. And it's the same thing in CrossFit. If I don't make the right choices of recovery, sleep, maximizing training, being smart about injuries, I lose it. I don't know. It's just in me to just fight and like claw. And I don't know where it comes from, but it's in me.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast for 2017. I am Pete Hitzman, your host and the managing editor over at breakingmuscle.com. I think I've saved an especially good show for last in our inaugural season, as I got to chat with somebody who's been an inspiration and a role model for a whole lot of people. It's easy to look through a screen at our favorite athletes and be filled with awe and envy. We tend to tell ourselves that if we only had their genes, or their athletic upbringing, or their sponsors and coaches and facilities, we could be that badass too. But of course, this is a gross oversimplification of the person on the other side of the glass. Everybody struggles in their own way, fights their own demons, and overcomes their own measure of adversity. There are a few stories that better illustrate this than our guest today, Carleen Mathews. From a history of substance abuse, addiction, obesity, and an eating disorder, Carleen has scratched and clawed her way to the top in CrossFit, appearing 3 times at the Games. Every inch of her progress has been earned, and while an injury knocked her out of the 2017 Games, it also granted her perspective and strengthened her already stalwart character. Carleen sat down with me to discuss what she learned from this season and the obstacles she overcame to become the elite athlete we know today. We also touch on the social stigmas surrounding female athletes, how her life experiences have shaped her coaching, and her incredible efforts to improve her community through a number of outreach programs. Many top-level athletes end up coaching because it's all they can do when their careers are over, but Carleen overflows with a genuine passion for her craft as a coach and love for her athletes. If you're ever in Northwest Oregon, you've got to stop by CrossFit St Helens and experience the community that she's helping to create. This show is our Christmas present to you, our readers and listeners, and as we draw our first season to the close, our whole team would just like to say thank you to all of you who have signed on to the show already and sent us comments, feedback, and suggestions for guests. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show in the app of your choice and head over to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you found our podcast and leave us a rating and review. If you'd like to reach us directly, you can do so as always at editorial@breakingmuscle.com. I hope you and yours have a wonderful holiday season, and I'll catch you all in 2018. Joining us this morning on the Breaking Muscle podcast is Carleen Mathews. Carleen is a 3 times CrossFit Games competitor, a CrossFit gym owner, and general badass about town. Carleen, thank you so much for sitting down with us this morning.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited for it. We've been trying to set this up for a minute. So you're just back from Reno, where I gather you were assault bike sprinting and eating delicious food. Tell me about that trip.
I went to Reno to do some media stuff with Ice Age meals. And so I got to cook and do some cooking shows and hang out with the Ice Age staff and Paleo Nick. And Sam Dancer was there. So I got to hang out with him, and then also got to go over to Black Iron Gym and train there and hang out with some other cool people that I enjoy hanging out with.
Hanging out with Sam Dancer seems like it's not going to be a dull time.
Right. Yeah, he's an amazing human being. He's so fun and so smart. So like, I like to call certain people like they're very wise and not just smart, not just like, oh, he's a good coach or he's a good, athlete. Like he's just a very wise athlete, wise coach. He knows how to engage people really, really well. And so that's really cool and fun to watch.
Cool. How did you get involved with the Ice Age folks?
I've been eating the Ice Age meals for a while. And so last year, Nick contacted me and asked me if I would like to be a part of that team. And of course, I jumped on it because I eat Ice Age all the time. And so I started working with them, and now I am a Ice Age sponsored athlete.
That's fantastic. And what better sponsorship could a competitive athlete get than somebody who's going to feed you the right stuff so you don't have to worry about it? That's got to be pretty freaking handy.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool to go there and, hang out in the kitchen and see like how much it's all just real food and it's real simple, and there's not a lot of like added fluff in the food. And so it was really cool to see the people that are like actually making the meals and how all that gets put together. And it was just really cool experience.
Do you cook for yourself at home outside of your Ice Age stuff, or was this kind of a baptism by fire in the kitchen?
Actually, my husband does majority of the cooking.
Okay.
So I put the meals together. He does the cooking. So like he cooks it, and then I'm like meal prep for myself. And so I usually do breakfast and like either a lunch or a dinner is prepped myself. And then one meal, sometimes two, is Ice Age.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good to be able to fill in the blanks that way, because what I see a lot of people is they'll meal prep and then maybe kind of run out of food because they trained a little extra hard that day, or they're just really hungry, and so that's when the crappy decisions happen. You end up at Five Guys cramming down cheeseburgers, right?
Yeah, or then for me when I was traveling, like coming home, I knew I had something ready and that was good for me, as opposed to like coming home and being like, well, I don't have any food, I got to go out to eat and stuff like that. So
perfect. So it's kind of irresistible, being that it's almost the end of the year, to do a year-long recap. 2017 has been a challenging season for you this year. You went to the games,
yes.
Had to pull out. Your tricep decided it was not going to do tricep things anymore. How's been the ride of 2017 for you?
The ride of 2017 has actually been just different. I think that when I look at it, it wasn't the outcome that I had envisioned, but I absolutely 100% learned a lot and grew as a person through the entire year. I feel like I did a lot of things that I haven't done, and I learned from all those things. So early in the season, I traveled a lot and competed a lot back to back, which I learned wasn't good for me. It was too hard mentally. It wasn't as much hard physically, but it was too hard mentally for me to be in competition mode that much. So leading up into the Open, I had competed like 3 or 4 different competitions back to back, and I had traveled to Mexico twice. And, was just trying to take advantage of the opportunities that I had, but didn't really realize how much they would take a toll on my mental well-being, I guess. So leading few months before the Open was kind of like a really trying time for me, because I wasn't in the best place mentally. I had to really reevaluate what I wanted to do and if I wanted to compete and how I was going to like pull it together. So Open came around, I was able to pull it together and get kind of everything back underneath me, I felt good going into regionals. Regionals was, for me, really fun. I worked a lot on my mental training. And then from there, going into the games, I felt ready. I was ready to show the world like how hard I've been working. I've been busting my ass for months leading up to the games. I got a new training partner. So I'd been training with Natalie Newhart almost every day. And we had been she had really been pushing me. So going into the games, everything felt good and I was ready. And then my body decided that it didn't want to work for me. And so as much as, as cliche as it is to say like everything, everything happens for a reason, there is, and I still believe there's a reason for me to have not competed at the games and to have dealt with this. I don't know 100% what that reason is, but I mean, as much as it sucked, I was really lucky to have the type of injury that I had. I wasn't in pain. I didn't have to have surgery. I didn't have that, it didn't take everything away from me. I was really blessed to be able to do some stuff. I didn't necessarily like all the stuff that I got to do, but it was mentally like challenging and hard to understand that I got to do only legs. Other people weren't doing that. I got to run. People weren't able to do that had other injuries. So I was lucky in that sense. And so like every time I deal with an injury, I feel like it makes me a better coach because I'm able to relate to other people. I'm able to learn different modifications, able to, role model for people, like how it can be done. And I learn a lot. So, as much as it wasn't the outcome that I wanted, it was like, I was able to experience the journey that I needed to experience. And for me, that's what it needs to be about. It needs to be about the journey. It doesn't need to be about the outcome that comes with the journey or the final. It's not, it's not that final. If I would have competed in the games, it wouldn't have made anything that much better. I still get to experience the journey to get there. So for me, like that was just all a part of the journey, and it's continuing. I kind of just related to like I didn't have a 2017 season of the games, and so now it's just transferring over to 2018. So in 2018, I'm going to be that much more prepared and hopefully ready for that. So
I think that's a huge mark of maturity for an athlete to look for the opportunity in that injury. Like, even though it sucks and it's terrible and you hate it and you wake up every day going, gosh, why doesn't my body do what I want it to do? Like, the injuries that I've been through have definitely, like you say, opened me up to some different areas that I can focus on, some different things that I can train and different ways to adapt. And what you find out is that your attitude improves so much because you're faced with this thing that kicks you out of what you like to do or what you're used to being able to do. And you come out the other side way harder to kill, I think, than you maybe were before. And I think, and I can't prove it, but I've seen a lot of athletes who go through the kind of thing that you went through this year, and they come out the next season and they're hungrier, they're more resilient, they're smarter, like they're more in tune with their bodies. There's so many things that you're gaining through that sort of like crucible of suck, that you come out the other side ready to rock and roll, which is, I hope to see that happen for you next year. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not to say that it was easy to have that mentality, but it's really the only choice that I had. I did have a choice. I had two choices. I could look at it as this is it and be mad about it, or I could look at it as this is an opportunity for me, and I wasn't willing to give up. So for me, the only choice was to look at it as an opportunity. And there were days when I didn't want to, and when I had to seek, outside help to be reminded that this is an opportunity and that everything's going to be okay.
What kind of, what did that look like, nuts and bolts, like seeking outside help to get your mind right?
Looking to my training partner, Natalie, my coach, Chris McDonald, and my husband, my gym family. I work with somebody for just some like mental training, and looking to them a lot for that. And then I also, like, as as hard as it seems sometimes with social media to compare yourself to people, I also like looked to people who I look up to on social media. Mm-hmm. So like, I was like looking at like, I would go to, like Camille's Instagram page and like, you know what, she's doing it and she has it harder than me right now because she can't do anything. Or there was, other people who had like had surgery, and Sheila Barden, I would look at her page and she had just had shoulder surgery and she's like, I can't run, I can't jump, I can't do like, all this stuff. And she's still doing it. And so I would like look to her for like motivation, and like that reminder that like, this is a choice. We get to do this. I get to do this. Other people don't. And so, sometimes it was hard because I didn't want to compare like myself to others, but being able to look to those people that I really respect for motivation was cool.
Well, it's the old, what would Rich Froning do thing, right? Like there's a danger in comparing yourself to people that you may or may not ever be able to match, but there's also some benefit to having some role models and some standards to shoot for, not just in terms of performance, but in terms of approach and attitude and mindset. I'm never going to be Rich Froning, but I can look at his work ethic and his just like calm business-like way of going about his training and say, that's going to be useful for me. I'm going to take that home and work on it. This season for you was very hard, and you kind of have learned, you already, like, it's funny, you started your answer by saying, oh, I don't know what I don't know what the lesson from this is. And then you told me exactly what the lesson was, right?
Right, yeah.
But this is not the hardest thing you've overcome either. You already had the resilience for this season because you had what I would call an atypical path to making it to the top level in CrossFit. The surface story is very normal. High school athlete, college athlete, after college got bored not being able to compete, found CrossFit, yay, CrossFit Games. That all seems very linear, but it wasn't. You had a lot of things that you've been very open about that you had to struggle against and overcome. How has that journey, which you've detailed other places people can find that out, but how has that impacted your CrossFit career and your coaching career?
I mean, I think that just being able to, for me, learn that I don't have to, that everything doesn't have to be perfect has helped me in CrossFit. I mean, in the whole journey. One of the biggest things that I think that I never really realized until like at the games this year that my coach brought to my attention was that nothing's ever been given to me. Nothing's ever been just, you have genetics, you are a naturally gifted athlete, you know, that kind of stuff. Nothing's been given to me. I've had to work for everything that I've gotten in my life. And that goes even back to like in growing up in softball, like I decided I wanted to be a pitcher and they're like, but you are 5'2.5". You're not a pitcher. You know, I'm like, no, I want to be a pitcher. And so I had to fight for everything and I had to do everything I could to make my body work and make what I was capable of doing work to be an amazing pitcher. And I did it. And I went to college and I didn't have the typical pitcher body, but I was able to, learn pitches that worked with my body and that worked for me and that were effective. And so, getting sober, getting through, recovering from an eating disorder, none of that shit was handed to me. That's all hard work. And I fought and clawed and continue to work every single day to make that reality for me. And the same thing, and it's the same way in CrossFit. Like I didn't start at like my first year going to the games, going to, regionals. I spent an entire year of CrossFit. I made it to regionals barely when it was the top 60. At regionals, I ended up placing like 18th. The following year, I placed 9th. The following year, I placed 4th The following year, I placed second. The following year, I placed first. The following year, I placed first. So like for me, I've had to claw up the leaderboard every single year. And for me, it's amazing to think about like the progress that I've made, but none of that was given to me. None of that was, you know, I'm in an easy region. Everyone says the West is easy. But the amount of hard work and dedication to that has been why I've been successful. Like it's not just, I have a template of what I need to get in. It's doing what I have to do every single day. And that, I feel like it's so connected to like my past, the recovery. I have to do certain things every single day to make sure I continue that, or I lose it. Like if I don't hold on to it with everything I have and I don't make the right choices every single day, I lose it. And it's the same thing in CrossFit. If I don't make the right choices of recovery, sleep, maximizing training, being smart about injuries, I lose it. So yeah, I mean, I think that is, for me, one of the biggest things that has helped me and that has carried over into the CrossFit world, like just being, I don't know, it's just in me to just fight and like claw. And I don't know where it comes from, but it's in me. So.
Well, the never stop trying thing is something that's thrown out a lot as a cliche, but never really illustrated, I think, in the way that we in the fitness industry talk about. We're very good about dispensing advice and then not illustrating how to actually get it done. But like you're saying, it's the choices that you make every day. At one point you looked at yourself in the mirror and you said, I can't look this way, or I can't do this to myself, or I can't continue to, this is not who I am. It's not who I want to be. And you didn't just stop there. You said, so if this is not who I want to be, now I have to make a choice. And I have to make another choice and another choice and another choice. I have to wake up every day and make 6 or 8 or 10 choices before I even make it out the door in the morning that are going to determine what my day is going to look like, because that's going to determine what my week looks like, and it all ripples down the road. And when you stop making those choices, like that's when it all falls off. I think a lot of people, the thing that I've seen is that a lot of people think that it's a matter of making a positive choice or a negative choice. And I think it's a difference between making a positive choice or no choice at all.
Yeah.
Because the default position for all of us is like bad stuff, right? Whether that's just laziness or whether that's substance abuse or whatever it is, like our default position as human organisms is to self-destruct. Like you have to choose every day to do things that like you don't instinctively want to do, and you're never done doing it. Like you're never done fighting it. And some people get into sport and fizzle because they get to where they thought they wanted to go, and they're like, oh, well, now what? And they stop making those choices, and that's it. They're off the bus. So how do I segue out of that, man? How has all of this impacted your coaching, right? So you've got a much broader life experience, I would say, than a lot of your contemporaries. And now you own a gym, CrossFit St Helens. How has this turned around, and now you're dispensing this wisdom on other people?
This has been, I think as of lately, like just this past year has been huge for me, because not only am I, like I talked about, like I'm able to connect with my members so much more because of understanding how to modify things, how to change things like that. But within terms of like my recovery, I've been able to give back. And so using the platform that I've created through CrossFit has been like by far one of the coolest things I feel like I've ever done with my life. Being able to give back to people in recovery. Right now we offer a recovery program for people who are in recovery from drugs and alcohol. And they have to have 48 hours clean and sober. And at the very least, they can come into one class a week We have that class on Friday nights from 6:30 to 8. They do CrossFit, and then they do nutrition. We also have the drug court and outpatient program in the local community has the opportunity to come in 5 days a week, and they have a specific class that they attend. And so we have a lot of people in recovery who are coming in 5 days a week. But at the very least, anyone from the community can come in on 1 day a week. And we also are working directly with a local treatment center. So they are bringing in their clients to do CrossFit, and they come in 5 days a week. So giving back to the recovery community is amazing. And the platform that I've created to be able to do that and to be able to offer that to people, to be able to reach out to other gyms and ask, like in the past 2 days, I've reached out to a couple other gyms asking, hey, I have a client who's coming who's been doing CrossFit with me, who is moving towards your gym. Would you be willing to offer them a scholarship type membership? And the feedback that I've gotten of, yes, absolutely, I'd love to do that, let's work with it, has been so cool. Because like other people are jumping on board with it. Last week we did a homework assignment for them. And so to the recovery class, and they had to write about how health and fitness has impacted their recovery. And so we have like 15 letters that are talking about how CrossFit's changed their life. And for me, CrossFit's changed my life. And so to be able to give that back and to see it in these letters, to hear from their counselors that CrossFit is the best part of their day and that it's impacting and increasing their self-esteem. It's decreasing depression. It's giving them an outlet. Is hearing that stuff is like makes it all worth it. Makes the time that we put in. And I have an amazing coach that helps me, and it wouldn't be able to happen without her. But for me, being a gym owner, I get to give my gym to these people. And so, that's for me is enough reason to own a gym, because I get to own the gym that I'm offering, these people the opportunity. And then I get to choose the coach that runs it. And I have an amazing coach who is also in recovery, so she can 100% relate. And we're starting to get some teens too. Wow. So we actually have a youth, I believe they do outpatient. So it's a youth outpatient, and they come in for one of their groups is CrossFit. So now we have 2 days a week teens come in. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool to kind of see the younger ones come in and get full of the CrossFit love and the community.
That's absolutely incredible. And this is why I do these interviews, right? It's not just that I get to talk to some of the coolest people on the planet, but I find out all these things that they're doing that nobody's talking about. Like, what you're doing is actually what the whole point of my work with Breaking Muscle is, which is trying to create an avenue of positive cultural change. Like, fitness is cool, right? Everybody loves to do muscle ups and Olympic weightlifting and go swim and run and bike and sweat and work hard and high five and do all those cool things. But what we're actually trying to do is change the culture. What we're actually trying to do is make people's lives better. Like, that's the purpose that I wake up with every day as a writer and as a coach. I'm trying to improve people's lives, whatever avenue that's going to look like, whatever help I can be in that vein. And dude, you're doing it in spades. I love that you're partnering with like local public agencies and stuff too. Like, It's not just that you're throwing a service out and hoping people show up. Actively engaging with the other gyms to get a broadened base of support. Like, that's the kind of thing that's going to change your town.
Yeah. Well, the cool part about it is that, our local agencies are the ones that have really stepped up too. So they're the ones that like we got a grant, and it's through, the local agencies and through the local mental health department. And so the local mental health department is recognizing that fitness and exercise is helping in recovery. And so they're doing something to support that, and so that's been really cool that they're recognizing that. We have, our one of our local St. Helens is a small town. So one of the local, like the drug court judge is a regular member. We have multiple members who work for the mental health department who are, regular members. A lot of social workers a part of our community already. And so they're seeing what CrossFit can do for them and what CrossFit's doing for the community, and then able to advocate for us that this is something that will change people's lives. And the more people that we have on board understanding and realizing that this is going to change people's lives, the easier it's been for us to start to promote it, start to get people in and get more support for it.
And that's missing from so many similar scenarios nationwide, right? Like I live in an area that has the unfortunate distinction of being the opioid capital of America. It's a real big deal here. Like if you go out at night and you see a car in a parking lot, there's probably somebody in it. Like it's not bad stuff happens here, right? But we're missing that holistic sort of approach. One of the things I took away from my CrossFit L1, and I came to CrossFit as a, how should we say, dyed-in-the-wool skeptic, right? Even wrote articles about how dumb CrossFit was and did all this stuff before I got drug into it, kicking and screaming by my wife, who was often ahead of me on the curve. But one of the things I took away from my L1 was the continuum of health and fitness, right? It's a very basic concept that Greg Glassman put out a decade ago, but it's health and fitness are not separate concepts. They're the same concept on a continuum. Well, health and fitness itself, it's not just a linear continuum. I see it as like a three-dimensional space. And it's health and fitness are the same thing. Sleep is nutrition, is exercise. Those are all the same thing. They're all tied together. Your mental and spiritual and physical health are all tied together. And for us to address a single one of those is never going to be as successful as addressing all of them at once. And so if you have somebody who's struggling with any kind of psychological issue, whether that's a substance abuse problem, whether it's an eating disorder, whether it's any kind of just process that isn't working the way it's supposed to, if you're only taking them to a counseling session several times a week and saying, no, don't do that, like that's not going to be good enough to get them to the next step, which is self-sufficiency, which is having the autonomy to recognize and deal with the problems, not on their own, but at least of their own volition. And you're checking the boxes, man. Bring them in the gym and show them a community, and give them a sense of normalcy, and give them a routine, give them nutritional practices. Like that's the kind of thing that's gonna turn the tide. And I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see the Carleen Mathews national franchise program. That's like you're traveling and giving seminars to local areas, because I think that could be a game changer in a lot of communities.
The connection between the CrossFit community and the CrossFit methodology is so similar to the 12 steps that it's unreal to me. Like every single day I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so true. It's so similar. And you're right. It's just another, like for us, it's not the only way. It's not, I'm not saying like come to CrossFit and you'll never drink again or you'll never use again. It's a tool to put in your toolbox. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I've been, it's my outlet, and it's a very useful tool for me, but, for others, meetings are a very useful tool for them, but it's not the only way. And so for me, being able to share my story to people that, who struggle, that, there's not just one way. There's not just counseling. There's not just meetings. There's not just CrossFit. There's, it's everything. Mm-hmm. And this is just a tool that we're able to give them and show them so that hopefully they'll use it. A lot of times we run into like, they love CrossFit when they're here, but then they leave the treatment center and then we kind of never hear from them. And it's going to happen more times than not, but there's going to be one time that we find someone who sticks with it and it's going to make it all worth it. So it's like, it's just that, like, you save one person and you show one person that there's more out there and it makes it all worth it. So.
Yeah, somebody gave me a piece of advice a long time ago when I started writing publicly was how many people need to read your article and believe it for it to be worth it for you to write? And that's kind of a shitty question because then you have to step back and go, you kind of come off your high horse about, oh, well, if I'm not getting a bunch of hits on my website, what's it matter? Well, how many hits does it take? One person reads that and takes it to heart and it changes their lives for the better, then that one person is worth it.
Yeah.
So keep putting, you got to keep putting it out there just on the faith that it's going to work some of the time. Just amazing. So, well, man, I was not prepared for this interview to get so awesome so quick. You threw me totally off. What other kinds of things are going on at CrossFit St Helens? Like what kind of athletes do you have come in and what kind of programming are you guys running?
We have a super cool community out here. We have more of a family community. So real CrossFit. It's pretty awesome because, I'm the competitor and I'm the games athlete. And, you'd think that we had like a big group of competitors, but we don't. And I love that about the gym. And I love that about the community, that people just come in because they want to work out and they don't want to compete. And they just want they just want to be fit and they just want to get some stress relief and stay active and be good role models for their kids. That's what we gear our programming towards. We don't have like competitor program. We don't have anything like that. It's just basic CrossFit and it's awesome. I love the fact that, that we're able to reach, so many different people. So, through that, like we're not geared towards, the competitor's gym. So I can have, I've got a 65-year-old in a class and I've got a 17-year-old in the same class and they, they're getting the same type of workout. Both of them are respected and welcomed. And I like to I think that the community is very open and welcoming to everyone and everyone's ability. And so that's really cool about the community too. There's no judgment on oh, well, so-and-so, is a competitor or whatever. Well, there's a lot of times there is that talk about me, well, you're, well, of course you did the workout in this time or, whatever. I'm like, yeah, but it's all relative, so there's a lot of reminders of yes, I'm the elite athlete, but it's all relative. You're getting, the workout is just as hard for you as it is for me. I just have to work a little bit harder and, do things a little bit different, maybe more weight than certain people. So, yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy doing modifying and scaling people. I feel like coaching is, yeah, we can all kind of coach, but the real art and craft is in being able to scale people and modify people to get that same stimulus or to get them moving when they can't do the movements. And so people will always be like, well, I don't want to take up all your time to, scale me and stuff. And I'm like, no, that's the fun part. You're only limited by your creativity. Mm-hmm. And I have this, I'm a very creative person. I enjoy, being creative and coming up with different workouts or different ways to do the workouts. And that for me fills that void of okay, well, the workout's programmed and I'm going to tell you guys all the workout 3 times a day, but then when I have that one person that comes in and is like, hey, my knee's really bugging me, and like, oh, good. So let's do this and this. And typically it's going to be like, I'm like, you don't understand, but that's when I scale things, it always feels harder. Like it always seems like it's harder. And like, you probably got a better workout than anyone else because we had to scale and modify things. So, yeah, that's when like I really enjoy the creativity of coaching, is when I get to change things up and, work with people who can't do it as prescribed. That's the fun.
Well, that's where you create the most meaningful human connections as well, right? Like the people who come into your gym and they're already healthy and they know what they're doing, and you say, okay, there's the workout, and they squat really nicely and they do all the pull-ups and whatever. Yeah, I'm happy for them. Like, that's awesome, dude. But like the 60-year-old grandma who comes in who has zero shoulder extension and who has, sciatic nerve problems and all this stuff, and we create a workout for her that allows her to participate in the class, allows her to get the physical stimulus she's looking for, allows her to break a sweat and feel like she worked hard, and crucially, not just feel like she worked hard, but accomplish actual work that's going to make her better the next time she sets foot in the gym. That's rewarding because you get that look. It's my favorite part of the whole day when I coach.
Absolutely.
You get that look from the athlete that's like, hey, look what I just did. And I'm like, you're damn right you just did.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the part that keeps you coming back.
Totally. We had a woman come in, and she was like, she's nervous about coming in, but knew she needed to come in. And I had her start, squatting, and she's, squatting to a box, and that was causing pain. And a lot of just deconditioned, and a lot of stuff was causing pain. And I'm like, you understand that you have to be able to do this to sit on the toilet. And she's like, yes, I know. And so that's been, she goes to the doctor, her knees are hurting her. She goes to the doctor says, you cannot squat for 2 weeks. Like, okay, how do you sit on the toilet?
Or the bed,
and so
or
I'm
anything.
Right. I'm like, that's fine. I get it that the doctor is going to say that, but we're trying to teach you functional movement, and we have to get you squatting. It doesn't mean you have to go to parallel. It doesn't mean you have to bear weight, but we have to get you going through a range of motion in order to get you to be functional outside of here. And
here's a crucial thing that people misunderstand about CrossFit. Well, and in truth, some CrossFit gyms do a very good job of reinforcing this stereotype. But yeah, there's movements on the board, and yeah, we're going to try to get everybody to do those movements. But if 17 back squats are on the board for 5 rounds in a workout or whatever, that can be a squat with a bar on your back. That can be a squat with body weight. That can be a squat with a 5-pound plate held out in front of you as counterbalance. That can be a squat holding a resistance band from the rig to give you some assistance at the bottom. That can be so many different things, and we can scale it for reps, and we can scale it for load. We can scale it for range of motion. It's whatever we're going to get. You were talking earlier about, oh, well, she is the elite athlete, so this all must be easy for her. Max effort is max effort.
Right.
And the runners that I coach, like a 10-minute mile, if that is your eyeballs bulging fastest mile, then you just worked as hard as I did to run a 6-minute mile or whatever I'm running that day. Like, it's hard freaking work. And in fact, like you're saying with scaling, if you run a 10-minute mile and that's your max effort, you just worked harder than me.
Yeah.
Than a 6-minute mile because you're out there longer. So, scaling doesn't mean easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, that's why I like to, I always say scaling doesn't mean easy. Scaling means a progression to get you to do it at prescribed. So yeah, I mean, it's just, it's all relative. And that's the amazing thing that I like about CrossFit. And it's, like they always say that CrossFit isn't for everyone, but CrossFit is for anyone. So anyone can do it. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's for everyone. Not everyone loves it, and not everyone, finds it as enjoyable as me, and that's fine. Whatever, I would say that, whatever kind of activity you enjoy doing, that's what you should do.
Yep. Whatever keeps you coming back. It's that positive feedback loop. And I really, I'm with you. Like and at Breaking Muscle, we've taken the editorial standpoint that we're fitness agnostics. Whatever it is that gets you up and gets you going and puts a smile on your face and keeps you coming back and makes you feel and become better than you were when you walked in. Cool, man, go do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's Zumba or something that I think is a little bit silly, it doesn't matter because I'm not the guy who has to choose it. So
absolutely,
go do your thing. People think I'm a little weird for wrapping myself in Lycra and riding a bicycle, but I do.
Yeah.
So
right?
Is what it is. One of the other things that you're doing, maybe subconsciously or maybe consciously, is changing the conversation about what fit women look like and can do. And this has been, I think, probably the second biggest contribution to our culture that CrossFit has created, is putting ridiculously strong women on TV and saying, this is what you can aspire to.
Yeah.
How is that something you've consciously adopted, or how's that message been for you?
For me, when I first got into CrossFit, that was absolutely the message. And I actually recently talked about this in a previous podcast that I did with Black Iron Gym. And we talked about how social media has kind of changed the way, women are viewed in CrossFit. And so when I first got started into CrossFit, that was, I was fairly fresh and coming out of an eating disorder. And I walked in and saw women doing pull-ups and back squats and having beautiful bodies, tattooed, back squatting heavy weight. And that was the first thing I thought was, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to do that. I want to be like that. And so that picture of a strong woman was what I aspired for. Because when I was in my eating disorder, I wanted frail. I wanted to look frail. That was exactly how I described how I wanted my upper body. I wanted my upper body to look frail.
You actively said that.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that was, I look back at pictures and yep, that's what I was going for. And so so when I first got into CrossFit, that was, what I really wanted to promote too. And was everything was strong is the new skinny, and, strong is beautiful. And I think that as much as that is also, that's still, huge, right? I still want to promote that to all the little girls that are coming into the gym, and even in the high school girls that come into the gym, stuff like that. However, I think that social media is starting now to shift, and it's now sex sells, and that does make it hard for a female. And so it makes it hard for me. It makes it hard I can imagine how it makes it hard for other women. There's now people saying that you have to be a certain percent body fat in order to be a competitive athlete. And when those things are going around, and when when you're seeing all these, games athletes with smashed six packs and rock hard bodies, it's not necessarily reality. And while that is motivating to know that that yes, we don't need to look like a supermodel anymore, and that's not necessarily what women need to shoot for. It also goes to the other extreme of, you don't have to have a six pack to be a games athlete. You don't have to you don't necessarily have to look a certain way to be a certain person, I guess, or to be someone. And I think that that's what keeps coming back for me, is that it's not even about strong is the new skinny, because then I'm still comparing body types, and I'm still putting emphasis on body as opposed to who you are as a person and what you do. and your character and, your integrity. And, like that's what really matters, and not what your body looks like. And so a lot of times, I even like, I think about when I was like, oh, strong is the new skinny. And I see those shirts and stuff all the time. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want to promote.
That wasn't the point, right? Like
Yeah.
that was never the point of the strong is the new skinny thing is cool, but it needs to take another step.
Yeah.
It needs to be like become a better person, and that's not very a good slogan. We'll have to work on the branding on that a little bit, but stop sucking at being a human being. That's what you should basically try to do. But I mean, to your point, like I very carefully sculpt my own Instagram following, like the things that come on my feed. I don't do it with Facebook and I don't do it with Twitter, but with Instagram, I'm very particular. One of the people I follow on Instagram is Sarah Robles, who just won a gold freaking medal and set records at the International Weightlifting Championships in Anaheim a few weeks ago. She doesn't have a six pack, okay? But she's smart, she's funny, she's ridiculously strong, like so freaking strong, like squatting just all of the plates all day strong. And crucially, is a good example for the people who follow her. Like the message that she puts out publicly all the time is extremely positive. It's extremely confident. It's extremely open and honest, much like your message is just open and honest. Like, yeah, these are the things I struggle with. And yeah, it sucks. But you know what? I don't care, because I'm going to be the best Sarah I can be. I'm going to be the best Pete I can be. And that's all that anybody is really supposed to be after, and not this like body type or whatever. And like you're saying, there needs to be another evolution of this. It's going in the right direction, but we need to take another step.
Yeah, it kind of, I think it like has gone from, like I said, like one extreme to another extreme. And yeah, it's like, can we find that happy medium, that, balance of kind of like both of the, like, yes, being a strong woman physically, mentally, emotionally is how we should, not how we should, but like is, in my opinion, the most ideal. Doesn't mean you have to be, it doesn't mean you have to look like the strong, you don't have to look a certain way in order to do that. And one of my like favorite quotes right now is "You are enough." And it's like I just continually remind myself that you're enough. You are enough, like just who you are. You don't have to be someone you're not. You don't have to look a certain way. Like I am enough just being me, being Carleen. And that was for me what like helped get through drugs and alcohol, is because I was always trying to be somebody that I thought everyone else wanted me to be. And
how do you balance the idea of you are enough with the need to get better?
I think it's a constant, like it is a constant balance, because, I need to, like, I am enough being me, but I can always bring my performance to what I'm capable of, so always for me, like finding new, I guess, like new levels that I didn't know that I was capable of, but I am, and so trying to really pull out what's the best in me, as opposed to just settling for, what I am right now. I also think that when I'm thinking about performance, I don't think that there's really ever enough, right? I think that we'll always strive to be better, and that's what keeps us, like, that's what keeps me doing CrossFit. If I feel like I've settled, or if I feel like I've gotten to the point where I'm content, I don't know that I would enjoy CrossFit and the journey as much. But I still think that there is that balance of being like, but I am enough, like I'm fine just the way I am. I don't have to be better, but I choose to be better.
It's that healthy disconnection between your conception of yourself and your appreciation or your appraisal of your performance, right? That's a really big deal, especially for a lot of athletes at the top of their sport, where they start to equate their ego in the Freudian sense with how they did at their last competition. Man, that's a dangerous road to go down, because in something, especially something as complicated as the CrossFit Games, like, you stub your toe, you're 15 places down the leaderboard. Like, we've seen, mental errors happen in the middle of a workout where somebody goes to the wrong implement or trips on their way to the finish line, or something crazy happens. They lose, 8 or 9 places, and that's the end of their run at the podium or something like that. Like, the finish at the games this year came down to some real tight stuff, and it was pretty controversial. But as a person, beyond being just an athlete, you have to be able to separate yourself, separate your conception of yourself from what the numbers say.
Exactly. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is not tying your self-worth to how you do at the CrossFit Games or how you do in a workout on a daily basis. Like, just because I had a shitty workout doesn't mean that I'm a shitty person. It means it means I didn't have it today. And that doesn't make me less of a person. And I think that is like that fine line of not tying your self-worth to, how you finish at the games or how you finish it on your gym whiteboard. And that was, for me, a big piece of, going back to like how was my 2017 season, is that I didn't have to define my self-worth with how I finished my 2017 game season. I didn't define my worth by that. I used my journey as, like, how did I change as a person? How did and see that as success?
And can't base it on how many likes your latest Instagram selfie got either. Like,
exactly.
Because algorithms hate everybody, which is a thing that I struggle with every day being in media. They just, anytime you start to get some momentum, you're going to get crushed by the algorithms. So just relax. And B, it doesn't flipping matter, because that's not why you should be doing it. We're running a little bit long already, and I want to get a few more things in. So do you have a life outside the gym? You are you're training for the CrossFit Games, which everybody has said is a full-time job, except Valvo Baril. She disagrees. Yeah. You're running the gym. You're running these outreach programs. You're sitting down with schmucks like me for podcasts. Like, you're traveling to Reno. Is there downtime for Carleen Mathews?
Honestly, there's really not a lot. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, like, a lot of people want to hear that, like, I do all this stuff outside of the CrossFit world, but I try and find balance. I try and spend like at least like Sundays with my husband. He's really busy also, so during the week, like, we don't have a lot of downtime and a lot of time to really like spend together. And so the weekends I try and spend some time with him. And but I really genuinely love just training. And so when people like ask me, like, oh, don't you want to like have some, like, what do you want to do on your day off? I'm like, actually, I kind of just want to train, like, not because I want to like get better, but I just really love training. So yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of downtime. That I tried to use the time when I was recovering from the injury as like, okay, this is my opportunity to really dive into some things that I typically don't have time for until before the season gets going like full swing. But yeah, other than that, like, I spend time with my husband. I have a little wiener dog that I love. And the gym is life. Running a business. We live at the gym. So we live upstairs.
That's
and
awesome.
So literally, like, it doesn't get much more literal than that. Like, we live at the gym. So, it's good and bad. I think, like, people are always like, isn't that so great? And like, well, there's good and bad things. Sometimes when I want to just be away from the gym, I can't. But, it's nice because I'm lucky to have the opportunity to walk downstairs and train. So
Well, and you go play with your fitness, right? So that's the thing that I kind of try to put out a lot to some of my athletes. It's like, yeah, train, but go do something fun with all this fitness you've built up that doesn't have anything to, there's no desired stimulus, there's not a clock running, there's no counting of reps, there's just go out and play. Like my favorite thing to do if I have a day that I don't have any training scheduled is, if I have time, if I'm not working, to go ride my bike for like 6 or 8 hours, which sounds a lot like training, right? But it's not, because I'm just out putzing around on a bike.
yeah. And like whenever I even have like, I have a one of my members that I train with every once in a while. And the other day was just kind of having like an off day and like not feeling it. I was like, do a movement, like choose the movements that you love. What do you love to do? Mm-hmm. Like choose those movements. I know exactly how that feels to be like, oh my God, I do not want to do this workout. And like, I don't want to do this movement. I hate these movements. And to not want to do it, choose movements that you want to do. Choose something that sounds fun to you and do it and enjoy it. As opposed to like training, that's when you have to like do what you have to do, not what you want to do.
Right.
You know? So
cool. Who are your mentors these days? Who's helping you navigate the perils and pitfalls of being a business owner and a top tier athlete?
My coach, Chris McDonald, has been my mentor and coach for 4 years now. He's a CrossFit HQ seminar staff. Mm-hmm. And then him and Todd Widman, really look up to them as coaches and just people who, I don't want to say like father figures, but they're father figures for me. I lost my dad, and those two really filled that void of like a father figure for me, at the same time being a peer, you know, like in terms of like a coach. And so, yeah, I learned a majority of all of my coaching I learned from Chris, and I really look up to him as a coach and a business owner.
I have to get him on the show too.
Absolutely.
So where do you go from here? What does 2018 look like, and 2028 and 2048 look like for you?
Oh,
I'm going to make you write an essay now.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's going to go where it needs to go, I guess. Right now, I'm obviously, I want to go back to the games, and that's the end goal, but I am not married to that being the only thing. So I'm very aware that there will come a time when I won't make it to the games anymore. And I'm very aware that that time is probably coming soon. However, one more year and I am a master's. So I am looking, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I can't wait for masters. And so, cause I actually have always been, like, people don't realize it, but I've always been one of the older athletes on the field, and people just don't know it. So I'm 34, and so I'll be 35 next year, and I'll be able to do masters. So that puts in another wrench in the actual life thing, because my husband and I would like to have kids at some point, but I am very reluctant to have children until I feel like I am not selfish. Right now, I am very aware that I am living a fairly selfish life. And I feel like
selfish in reference to your time commitments and your training. It's not that you're not to society at large, but
absolutely.
Having a person who is 100% dependent on you is a completely different thing.
Yep, exactly. And so I don't think I'm at a place where I should be having kids. And I'm just not ready to give up what I want. And I know that, having kids will completely change my life. I want to be able to do everything that I want to do before I start that next stage of my life. So yeah, I mean, that time is coming. So I don't really know what, like, I'm going for I'm 2018. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try and make it back to the games. My region just got extremely harder. And so right now the goal is to go out and put the best Carleen that can be on the floor mm-hmm. at regionals. Well, I got to make it there first, and then put the best Carleen that I have at that time on the regionals floor and see what happens. And if it happens that I make it back to the games, then then that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I put my all of my focus towards. But if it doesn't, it's not the only thing for me. I feel like I'm doing so many other things that realizing that the CrossFit Games is not forever, and it's an amazing opportunity that I have, but it's just not the only thing. So
there will be life after the CrossFit Games, whether you're prepared for it or not. And it seems like you've laid some pretty good groundwork to continue to do important work after your time getting a pile of free nanos once a year is over. Carleen, thank you so much for setting aside the time. This has been even more of a fun conversation than I had anticipated, and I had the bar set pretty high. So I'm stoked to wrap up the year with this interview. And where should people go online to follow you and find out just what you end up doing next year?
Team Carleen on Instagram, Carleen Mathews on Facebook, and Team Carleen on Snapchat and Twitter. So
fantastic.
Pretty much Team Carleen all the way around.
If you search for Team Carleen, you will find her. She is everywhere that they do digital things. Again, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing what you do in the new year.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.